like this new tune that I just came up with from.
Harville Harmony.
Well, it's a new audio version from someone who I follow. Her name is Danuk D. She's an amazing artist, and so I found her on Spotify, and so that's the music that you're hearing in the background. Bella, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's so good to see you again.
It's great to see you.
How are you, love?
I'm good. I'm in Miami. I'm looking for a new place to live. I'm going to all these beautiful places on the beach because I realized if I'm not traveling and I'm in one place and I'm attuned in the now, I actually want to surround myself with the things that I love. So, and I want to have a puppy. So I'm looking to get a puppy and I'm on the beach, and it's really good to actually ground and have that in one place. I've never had that in many years. So something is happening in my life that hasn't, thanks to COVID, I guess, but it's a new phase for me.
Beautiful.
Wow.
COVID has initiated people into a lot of things, like really self-care, which everything you're saying is self-love, self-care. This is what I want. Why am I denying myself? Let's go for it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, so we're introducing you to our audience, to the people that are watching this live stream for lovers. We call it the Extraordinary Lovers TV show. And we started this because we wanted to be able to communicate and have a back and forth question and answer with people who are just regular people on Twitch. So the platform we're using now is Twitch, and it's a lot of fun. We always take all of our videos and we put them up on YouTube, but we wanted to have it here because we wanted to reach a young audience. And as far as I can tell, Twitch is one of those places where a younger audience can come in and learn about sex and have a sex education conversation in a safe
about
space. Relationships, and also to expose them to some of the jewels in our lives, those treasures that people that we've found and that we love, and we want to make sure that they have access to people like yourself as well. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and we're really excited to have you on here. You have been such a just an ally and an advocate for the work that Laurie and I do, and we appreciate you so much for that. And we want to be allies and advocates for you as well, to show the work that you do. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do and how you kind of came along. Just share.
Yeah, I love the platform that you have chosen. So this is one of the side projects, I could say, that I do with Anna, Conscious Connection, where we really want to connect people that have no clue about another way of relating, another way of connecting with your own life force, and not just saying no to the other or expecting the other to give you pleasure. So like really the first steps of knowing that there are ways of relating that can be so rewarding, and not outsourcing our pleasure or our fulfillment on somebody else. So that sounds like it's very aligned with what the show is about.
Yes, you get the bell for that for sure.
Bella gets the bell.
Bella gets the bell. That's right.
Yeah. So that's what I care about in the world. And then the work that I do on an everyday basis. I'm not somebody who skims the surface. So what I do on an everyday basis is to go deep in with people, either groups or individuals. And I have some tools to do that with. So before COVID hit, it was a lot about the more shamanic way and kind of using fields, whether it was plant medicine or just using life force, and see, being activating those fields and being there for whatever happens, which for me is Tantra. Like, can you be there for whatever happens and say yes? So after COVID, it's become more like this, right? In a screen. And the tools that I have been more using for the last year is Human Design and Gene Keys, which are systems based on astrology, on the Hindu chakra system, and the I Ching. And the I Ching is this old oracle that the sages in China were writing for generations and generations, like 3,000, 5,000 years ago. So it's the book of changes. So it's all about how everything has cycles. And what I see is that in today's society, very much we forget about the cycles, and we have been kind of in our masculine a lot of just like going and going, and there is something we're coming back to also, honoring the form, not just honoring the mind and then the go. So for me, the I Ching and the Book of Changes, and the feeling into the archetypes that are in our lives, whether we say something as simple as the feminine, the masculine, like archetypes, there's something with that. For me, life is a play and a theater. So when I get to play with everything that's in my life and with other people and embodying all the parts of what we are, integrating them, that's when I feel most alive. That's when I feel like I'm, on the path of purpose for myself.
Lovely, really lovely. Well, let's go into that a little bit. Let's define. So you've said what the I Ching is, and really well, by the way. You reminded me of something when I was in my 20s and I lived in Boston. I was in a bookstore, and somebody that I worked with, I was a waitress. I went to Boston and there was no jobs for people with master's degrees. So everybody that I knew who had like masters and PhDs were all waiting on tables. And so one of my coworkers and I went into a bookstore, and she said, "What's this book, the I Ching?" And so I started to explain to her that it was the Chinese Book of Changes. And I started going into a definition of it. And there was an old Chinese man. I didn't see him, but there was an old Chinese man standing behind me. And when I turned around, he went like this. And he bowed to me after I talked about the I Ching. That's a memory from a really long time ago. But I love that you gave us some clue about that. Now to give us some clue about the human design and also the gene keys, because I have to say that I'm sitting here with my partner who, unless it's scientific and like backed up, he's like, why? What does this mean? Why? And so I said, Bella's going to tell you, you'll see. So tell us a little bit about that for people who might be listening who don't know what it is.
Yeah, there's so many systems out there, whether it's the Enneagram, whether it's the six-pointed star, or, this and that. So for me, I didn't know from the beginning that this was something I was going to work with. I found out when I was sitting at the terrace in San Diego. I had just gone there for a work project, and I was having breakfast, and that body graph. So it's based on your birth time. It's based on astrology, but it has also it has what we call the body graph, which is the centers, the chakras. And it was just, I saw it and it was interesting to me. And very synchronistically, I got an email from my best friend in Philadelphia, and he's like, have you, this woman is in our community. She's in San Francisco, and she is doing a training, like a 4-month training on human design. Maybe that's something for you because now you're in California. And it was so synchronistic, and there was something in me that just felt, I had gone through some difficult period where I had moved back to Sweden from New York, and I felt kind of lost. And the only thing I had to kind of hold on to was my work. But it was, as long as I was in Sweden, I felt unhappy. And then I was there, like the second day in San Diego, I see this system, and there was an opportunity for me to drive up the coast to San Diego. And I did, and I met Rosie Aronson, who had been working for maybe a decade. She has a PhD in psychology. She was doing human design, and she was doing gene keys. And gene keys is like the genes we have, the cell, the genes, and then keys like opening the door. Some people are like, "Are you saying gen keys? What is that?" Because my accent. So I'm going to say gene keys, so you know what it is. And I saw her, I went there, and she was doing both systems. And I think for me in life, that's been my balance. My mom is Swedish, my dad is Spanish. I saw two realities, and I had to bridge the gap to make sense of it, because it doesn't make sense if either your mom is crazy or your dad is crazy. As a child, you want to have them both in your heart. So for me, that was a bridging. And similarly, I feel it was with gene keys and human design. There are different systems. They are based on the same calculations astrologically, based on your birth date, but they have a very different flavor. So human design is more masculine. It's about your type, your inner authority, your decision-making process, like how other people perceive you. Very much kind of masculine, kind of a dad that says, okay, these are the rules, now play by them, and you kind of have, okay, you have your map, you have that to use. And it's not very spiritual. It's actually very mechanic. So sometimes I like to use it, especially with men that are a little bit skeptical, because when we start to speak about it, it's like, oh my God, that's exactly me. That's what I mean. It's like there's often so much recognition in human design. And then I would say the gene keys that came after. So human design was created in 1987 by a man who basically had just a voice. Like he had I would say it was a spiritual awakening, probably. It was in Ibiza, and he got this download and he started to write it down. And then he had a student for many years, and that student then went on in 2004 and created this other system that is based on the same calculations, but it actually has, instead of just being mechanics, like saying, okay, you have this number, I have this number, we don't like each other. I'm oversimplifying, but human design is very mechanic. Gene keys it's all about a frequency. So they say, okay, you might have this number, or this oracle card in the I Ching, which is basically what we're doing, from 1 to 64. You have the number 2, for example, which is my main one. And it says it depends on your level of awareness, how you're going to live out that number 2. For me, the frequencies are being lost or dislocated. That's what happens to me if I'm in a low contracted fear frequency. And if I am in an open-hearted and like expansive frequency, a higher frequency, it's all about orientation based on intuition. So either I can be afraid and I'm going to always feel like I'm lost wherever I go, or I'm open-hearted and I'm going to be able to feel my intuition and orienting all the time. And then the highest frequency of that is unity. So when I open my heart, when I orient in every moment, I'm going to have this feeling of being in unity with what's around me, being in unity with the planet, with God, and that's not something that I'm going to be like, oh, that's really tangible, unity. No, it's more like this creator spark that I can feel in myself. So it's really the middle frequency, the intuition and the kind of inner guidance or orientation. That is my pathway. So the way that we use the gene keys is that we see that there are frequencies. We see that when we're human, there's a pathway that is encoded in us, we could say. We have it. And then we're going to, as human beings on that theater journey of life, we're going to dip our toes into the shadow and maybe even fall into the shadow. How many times did I feel lost? How many times did I have to come back to center? And then that beautiful feeling of like, put me in the jungle in Brazil and I can feel unity. Put me like, maybe not so much in a board meeting, but I can at least feel like, I did an MBA and I felt kind of home because I chose to do it in LA where everybody were wearing flip-flops, and not in New York City where everybody were wearing ties, So that's the orientation of what you choose, right?
I love that. I just love, well, it sounds to me like that's what you're doing when you're looking for this new place in Miami, like you're looking for a place on the beach so that you can feel that unity, not feel the cement of a high rise, or maybe a high rise, but on the beach, so that you can go outside and feel the unity anytime.
Yeah, and the animal aspect too, because
Yeah.
that's what I know that dogs, there's just something for me. So like the feeling the heart, and a dog is transparent. It's not going to lie to you. Like there is something for me with transparency and vulnerability that's just, that is there, that I feel so strongly. And the intuition, I feel, especially now that we haven't been, I know my mom sent me something on dogs too, that when so many people are buying, like I feel like there is something that we have felt with, even like in the mainstream, when we are isolated from each other, it actually sparks something in us, in where we see what's important in the long run. Because we know that before it was just, you can go on any low cost airline and just book a ticket with like not even a return ticket and just go. So it was easy to kind of also distract yourself and be a nomad. And now we don't really we can't do the same thing.
That's so true. So how do you feel? Do you feel convinced of anything?
Nope. I want to know more.
We should have done your chart before.
I'm one of those that just wants to know how it works. Like, how can a system or a discipline like astrology take my date of birth and my time of birth and all those things and describe me? Because I feel like I'm a pretty complicated individual, and I feel like human beings across the board are all different and complicated, and have they all have different life experiences. So that I think that those things tend to be the things that are the markers for personality, for like those kinds of things, rather than a time that I was born or a date that I was born. Can you speak to that a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, there are two things. The first thing is just to say that human design is called, the science of differentiation, because it's all about how extremely differentiated we are. Because if you think you have 26 main activations, what we can say, and they're decimals. So even if you're born kind of the same second, or the second after your twin brother in the same place, in the decimals, there's going to be a difference because everything moves all the time in the universe, right? So there is the science of differentiation says that there are no two people that are the same. And when we put the gene keys into that, says also, even if you have exactly the same chart, depending on the frequency, depending on the awareness, it's going to be lived out different ways. And probably if you go into spirituality, your soul came here with one kind of task to work with, and another soul came here with something else. So for me, it's completely like you're saying, we're all very different, we're all very unique, and we all have a unique purpose. And the cool thing that I've felt with those systems is that they are not like religion. They are not boxing you in. And in my case, when I'm using two systems, I can't be boxed in. If I go and speak in human design forums, they don't like my way of speaking because I'm too broad. And if I go and speak in Gene Key, it's a little bit more open, but still people don't want me to speak about astrology too much. Like they want me to like be in there, and I'm not like that. I bring tantra into this, and they're like, oh my God, that's not okay. Today I'm like, I'm dressed, and sometimes I'm not dressed, and sometimes I get comment about that. And for me, authenticity is really, the center point of everything. Mm-hmm. And that's what I see with those systems. Sometimes we just need to have a perspective on maybe our blueprint, and then we can decide this is right for me or this is not right for me. But anyway, it's going to take us more into a truth of like who we are.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing. And there's another thing I want to say, or like maybe if you want to comment on that, but there's another metaphor that I would like to give you on kind of how you could understand it.
Well, I just want to say something, and that is you hit the nail on the head, because the thing Michael objects to the most is that somebody would find his date of birth and his hour of birth and then typecast him and put him into a box. And that's the thing that I think he doesn't want anyone to do his chart. He doesn't want anybody to do anything because he doesn't want them to relate to him like he's a thing that is written up and figured out by a date and a time, right?
That's accurate. Yeah, that's correct.
So, and I love that. And I would say, because if you think about, there are 64 archetypes, 64 oracle cards in the I Ching, and we say that they have decimals or line, and each one of these have 6 lines. So already we have 384 different archetypes, and you are going to have this in 26 different positions in a body graph that can either be defined by you or kind of defined or more like open to the rest of the world. If you just hear that complexity, you know that there is no one facilitator or coach in this that can tell you who you are, because it's too wide and too complex to be able to pin it down. So that's why it's kind of like opening a door to start the journey of your life, and you can tap into different parts of yourself and play with it. So that's the way that I would say there's no pinning down. There's a continuous discovery of more layers and more parts of who you are, and nobody can impose anything on you.
Yeah, good.
That's really good.
Because I won't let them. I'm legit when I say that. I'm like, you think you know me? Trust me.
He even says that to me when I say I know you. He goes, "Don't know me.
You don't
know me."
No, you don't want to. You don't want to get stuck in the idea that you actually do know me, and that's part of the joy of actually being in a relating with Laurie, is that she doesn't assume, right? And neither do I. I don't feel like I know you. I feel like all the time I'm being surprised by something new that you show up with. In this particular moment, it happens to be how hard you fucking work, even though your eye doesn't work, Like you, like that's just, that to me is like, wow, I would have taken the 3 or 4 days off, but not her. She's like, no, I
I
got
would
work
be
to do.
bored. I would just be pulling my hair out. I would
So
be so.
yeah, so I'm constantly amazed by you. Listen, I got a couple questions for you. One of them is, you talked about wholeness, and I'm curious, what does it mean to be a whole human being?
And she also had something else. She also had a different distinction she was going to
Yeah,
say.
I'm gonna go back to the distinction, and then I'm gonna answer that.
Good.
Okay.
The thing is the hologen, and it goes together with this, is the hologenetic nature of existence, which is actually quite simple. So if you go into a cell in your body, that cell is part of an organ. That organ is part of your body, and you are part of like the human race, and the human race is on Earth, and the Earth is in the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is in the universe. So there is something, if we take a sample of a cell, we can see your DNA, in like your whole DNA from just one hair of you, or just one little saliva thing. So there is something to ponder upon when it comes to that hologenetic nature, that take a particle in a whole, and you're actually going to be able to read the DNA code, or the program of the whole system. So that is something to, explore and play with. I'm not saying I have the answer, but when I think about that, I'm like, okay, I'm part of a whole, and the planets are in a certain position, and people have been using astrology for thousands and thousands of years before they could even measure precisely where the planets were, and still they continued because there was something in it. So for me, it's more about that mystery of something that has been, for so long time, it has been there. I've just lived like one breath of time of this earth. So what do I know? So I kind of like to be, I like to be open. That's how I see it.
Thank you for
That's
that.
good.
I
Thank you.
love that. And once you start talking about DNA, he's all in. He's like, okay, DNA, science, scientific, yes.
Yeah.
And that can be read. You're right. That
Yep.
can be read.
Well, Kreza just made a really good comment. She said
What?
people change all the time, and we can even change our DNA through epigenetics, which is something that I study. I really think it's important for us to be able to switch on things that need to be switched on, and switch off things that need to be switched off.
And look, Caressa, my eye is changing, and it's more bionic than ever. So we're changing some DNA
Bionic
to,
woman.
yeah,
And
good.
that's a frequency thing. When somebody puts rice and put water on it, that they say like "fuck you," to the water, or they say "I love you" and I forgive you. The rice, they have done those kind of same scientific tests.
Hmm.
It's what the energy, the frequency that you infuse in something. If you say to a child every day, "You're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly," that's going to be imprinted into the child. And if you give the child the possibility to build their worthiness and their self-esteem, that is going to create a different kind of life. So for me, the fact that we can infuse something into the DNA, and like you say, switch on a higher octave of the DNA in an expression that is more positive and joyful. Like, I don't think that that's rocket science. I feel like that's kind of, very, very clear in
Yeah.
many ways.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. So now to your question.
Oh, wholeness. What does it mean to be a whole human being?
For me, I do feel like Tantra, and this is where I feel like we also cross. That's for me where I started to understand that there were behaviors in my life where I wasn't whole. So it sounds a little bit like maybe where you have been as well, because I used to be like you, Laurie. I used to be somebody who was very, very determined and very stubborn. My dad would tell my mom, "Don't tell her what to do because she's going to do the opposite." So I had that very strong way of just life. But then it started to become like expectations, in the sense that I knew that I was graded in school, and then I was like, okay, but if you can have A+, I should have that, because what should I choose? If I can choose between everything, I should have A+. And it started to like also interfere with my worthiness, and I felt like I had that A+ written in my face, basically. And if I had less, I would judge myself. So it started to become more of a hamster wheel, and more of like I would have anxiety if I wouldn't have A+ in everything, and it became it became quite action oriented, and I have that eros, I have that passion in me, and I could see that I left a part of myself behind. And then with Tantra, I learned about the masculine, about the feminine. I learned about the receptive, and like the receiving and penetrating,
Yeah.
and the same thing is what the I Ching is built up of. It's just a program, like the everything that changes is a combination of the yin and the yang. That's how the Taoist tradition see it. So I started to understand that if I was preferring to be so much in my masculine, I wasn't whole, and I started to be able to relax more into that. And I feel like plant medicine for me was also a way into see that I wasn't in control. And it goes back to what I was saying before. If I have just existed a breath and not even of the existence of this reality, like how can I think that I can control my life? you know
Yeah.
So starting to respond in a way that is not just me pushing life, but actually receiving life. And that's the same thing even with the way that I work today. I don't want to just push and penetrate. I also want to breathe. And you can even feel still in my behavior, the way that I speak very fast, the way that I'm very intense. And then actually if I stop and I lean back in my chair, you can probably even feel more of my inner strength, and that's sometimes hidden because again, we are here delivering something, but I believe that we're also here receiving something. So remembering that as well is part of what the wholeness means for me.
That's
So good.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. I had to do the same thing. I mean, I feel like Tantra also gave me that. On the very first day of my first Tantra class, I remembered who I was in a female body, and I also remembered that I was connected to everything, including a drop of water in the ocean. Like all of that came to me on my very first class ever, and I just went, "Oh, this is what happened to me." Like I was like, "How did I forget this? Where
Yeah.
did I get lost?" And I think it was the same thing. I didn't have the A+ thing, but I definitely had achievement.
Mhm.
I didn't care so much in school. Um, like if I got a B, that was all right with me. But I couldn't stop achieving. And then I said, "Oh, I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna shift. I'm gonna go more into the flow." And I still have to remind myself of that a lot, because my type, who I am, is more fiery, more penetrative. And so for me, I have to like constantly remind myself, you know, take the 24-hour rule, let it go, relax a little bit, take some breaths. I had a big upset. I'll just tell you this. I had a big upset on Tuesday, breaking up or falling out with somebody very key in my team. And I afterwards, oh no, it happened on Monday, so it was before
Monday.
the surgery. So I had my full faculties, and I came in here into this room and I did a little bit of emotional release, and then we had a piece of chocolate cake left over from Sunday night. A friend of ours came over and brought like gluten-free, amazing chocolate cake, and Michael said, "Well, what do you want now?" I said, "I'm upset," and then I said, "I know," and I smashed the cake all over my chest, and I said to him, "Here, eat this cake off of my breasts and off of my chest." And we laughed so hard. Like that was like, what can you do that's crazy right now? That's like really in the feminine, really different from how you feel. And so he just said to me, "Oh, this is so great. Like I'm eating cake off of you." And that was and we had this great laugh. And I said to him, that was like the best remedy, you know? And it was completely out of,
Beats talk therapy every time.
yeah, it definitely, it was very tantric. It was very anticlimactic. It wasn't anything that he expected or that I expected or that anyone would expect. And it was like that was the cure.
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake eaten off of body. And that was, that was our cure. So that was it. Other people may judge that as like a little crazy, and we didn't care. We just thought he said to me, that was so much fun. And I said, yeah, that was really fun for me.
That's
too.
Tantra.
And it made me laugh, and it made me go back into the feminine and not feel, like whatever. I had to do something.
Just to receive. She could just lay back and receive. And I think that was really the point of it all.
Yeah.
Was to just, let it be. It was great.
Yeah.
That's something that I love as well with Tantra, and maybe even goes back to kind of the life that we have led, Laurie, because I feel, especially as a white woman, I guess there are a lot of privileges with that I often don't think about until I'm put in a situation where I kind of have to open my eyes. But what I know is that we are kind of supposed to be nice and to be well behaved and to do things, well. And what I feel, what Tandra's given me too, and it's a little bit what you're saying too, is like the feminine, we have the light and the dark. The masculine, we have the light and the dark. And I feel that distinction. I love, it's Bruce Lyon who did the cross of, the animal, the soul. So he has those 4 quadrants. And to understand that there's something in that, like also you just smash it to you. Like, it's almost like you're saying everything that isn't love, let it just die. Let it just eat it out of me. And that is something very liberating for me with the dark feminine, because the only thing she cares about is love, and everything, the rest can die, right? It's so much courage in that. And when a man can be in that and eating from that heart, instead of being like, oh my God, she's crazy,
Right.
Then that power.
That's so good. And Bruce Lyon is one of my colleagues and also a great teacher of mine, and vice versa. And the cross, with the light feminine, dark feminine, light masculine, dark masculine, that's like some of the best stuff, that I've ever received from him. It's like, that piece is so deep. You too have gotten that from Bruce.
Yeah, I got that transmission from him. In Costa Rica, definitely.
Yeah, so that's so good. And yeah, all she cares about is love. Like, return to love or I'll bite your head off. So good, Bella. Really.
Well, Bella, you mentioned a couple of things. One of the things you mentioned was, your soul space. And I don't know if there's a distinction there, but is there a difference between soul and spirit?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I love that question, because I do feel like there's misunderstandings. And of course, whatever I share is my perspective of it, but something that I've seen in my work that completely goes together with the wholeness thing and completely goes together with everything we spoke about is that, I see life as evolution, involution. And evolution is that consciousness that expands and we go to new heights, and technology and all that. That's evolution. And for me, that is the lightness of spirit. It's like it becomes faster and faster. It becomes lighter and lighter. Like now in a millisecond, I can send something to my mom in Sweden. That when I was a child and we were in Spain, we could call on the phone to my grandmother once in 1 month with coins or something. It was very different, just like a few generations ago, in my own life, and that is something really cool. That's the Aquarian time that we're speaking about. Something that I feel is a little bit lost in today's culture is what I call the depth of the soul. So I see the lightness of spirit as that triangle that goes up into evolution, into the future. And I also see that as humans, because we have that creator mind, and we also have the human heart, and we have our primal energy, the dark, the dense energy. I also see that it's so important to include the depth of the soul. And that is the downward triangle. And that's what Kali, that's the dark feminine care about. She wants to be into form. She even goes into the underworld because she cares about that involution. What does consciousness matter if it's floating around? It doesn't actually matter until it comes into form. And it comes into form through the depth of the soul through the human heart, through the human genitals. Like there is something there where sometimes I feel like we forget to actually put words on it. So for me, the depth of the soul is the feminine aspect of our makeup. And then the lightness of spirit is the more eros, the more masculine part of our makeup. And for me, it's important to see that consciousness comes into form in the human realm, and it also goes up to spirit, and it takes us into the future. And just to see what it is that we are made up of, and also what we can play with. Because some days I'm like really in the depth of the soul or in the underworld. And some days I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool. Like all the jinkies are coding an amino acid. You know, this is going to be for like the scientific part. And the amino acids, that is the DNA. These are stop codons and start codons. And it's actually 64 codons in our DNA. Like, and I start to kind of like, you know, I get lost in the science of that. And for one moment, like for that day, maybe I won't really, I mean, my body is not the primary thing because I'm really getting high on my exploration. And then something happens so that I'm taken back and I'm listening to coming back into my heart, into my body. So one cannot exist without the other. And if we prefer one, you know, that's the thing. If we say I prefer black and not white, then we're already, you know, in duality. So if my life's work, if my important jinki is unity, I need to always come back to that middle point. Say, I'm Swedish, I'm Spanish. It's not either or. Like I said that when I was a child. I'm 100% both. And they were laughing at me because I was just a child. So that's for me. That is the, you know, the symbol, the model that I would speak about with soul and spirit, if that makes sense.
It totally does. I mean, I often speak in terms of that when I say that, you know, I really don't know that I have a soul, and you know, there's no way for me to be able to detect it, although I do feel like I have soul, right? But just like you say, when, you know, people would ask me, you know, so, you know, where are you from or what's your lineage, and I would say I'm human. You know, as far as I know, both my parents are human. One's Mexican, the other one was Caucasian. So, but I'm 100% of both of them. You know, I'm in agreement with you completely there. So there's a question that's kind of brewing in my head, and I wanna find out what you think about it, because there are a couple of things that you teach that have to do with leadership, and so there's a thing, role modeling, that you mentioned in the past. But role modeling, what does that mean to you? And is it different from leadership, or is it something that can be taught?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am future oriented, and I am a visionary. So I don't usually like the traditional way. I always see, like, I see more than what, you know, I see what's possible. And for me, what I see as the old leadership and what we've seen like in the corporate world, it's the hierarchy where one person is using their voice usually to tell everybody else what to do. And it's a hierarchy. It's the top that like speaks down to the base of the triangle, telling everybody what to do. And for me, I don't think that, I mean, we have seen in this world too that doesn't work. Because maybe as you're oppressing other people, they're going to do what you want them to do. But as soon as you turn your head, you know, it's that kind of relationship is not a win-win. So then it's going to break down like sooner or later.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's why I feel like we can't teach leadership, because if you even if somebody made their organization work that way, like we said before, everything is unique and different, and all people are unique and different. So for me to teach leadership, I don't like, that's kind of that's what I did in Sweden, and then at UCLA, organization theory and understanding how leadership works. And I don't feel like that can be taught. I feel the future leadership is role modeling. We're all completely unique and differentiated. And that's what you guys are saying. Nobody can impose on anybody who we are. So I can only step into my integrity, step into my truth, step into my virtue, and lead from there. And the inspiration that other people can have, and where they feel like I'm not putting myself over them or under them. And I'm not even, like, for me, hierarchy is not even true, because there are differences. So I want a synergy is the word that I use. I want us all to be in a web, you know, and where everybody does what they are good at. So if we come together, we all have different skills and different things. And a synergy for me is when there's synergy between the parts of the whole. So that's the way that role modeling, I can role model here in my web of this network, what integrity is for me and what values I have. And then you're going to have to feel into yourself and be inspired maybe by my example. But that's about what I can do. So I kind of laugh at those schools. I had a business for 6 years before I went to business school. And for me, it was a piece of cake because I didn't have to go and do like kind of dive into some kind of case study they gave us in a book. I could just think back to my 6 years of experience of being somebody that had even 14 employees before I quit. And for me, I could just see how impossible they were for these 19 years olds to actually have enough experience to even be able to speak in a way that made sense about leadership. Go out there on the battlefield, and then you're learning by doing, then you're embodying that instead of just a theory that then when you start working, it's not going to, when your employee is not going to work anyway. That's why you have to kind of start here and gain more and more trust so that you actually can lead others in one way or another.
I really like the term synarchy. Because
synarchy?
Synarchy. So because I look at the hierarchy has been put in place for the most part by patriarchy, and that hierarchy is almost always a detriment to the organization's goals. So I consider myself an anarchist, where hierarchy is not the thing, but really the goal is the thing. And I see that synarchy has it's a little bit more of what I really attune towards, because anarchy has the I think it's the bad reputation for it looking like total chaos and destruction, and that's not what anarchy means. It means without rulers, no rulers. And so synarchy seems to be a little bit more closer to the point. I like this because leadership really truly is about helping others to step into their own leadership. Well, you mentioned gene keys and human design, tantra, and all these things. How do all of these different embodiments or practices, how do they come together? Why use them that way?
Because I feel like we're here in life as a discovery and an exploration, and on your path, there are going to be different tools. And you can decide to pick them up, or you can decide to leave them. So I have, by walking the path of life and by being sometimes in crisis, sometimes in my highs and my lows, there have been things on my path that I've picked up. So this is my unique toolbox. And I am really encouraging anybody to create their own toolbox and to actually do it knowing that there's feminine, there's masculine, there is, very dense, there's very subtle. Really respect the laws of the universe in a way when you see that you create your toolbox. It's kind of the diversification when we speak about stock market or anything. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. You want to have different tools, because whatever happens, you're going to have something that's going to be useful. So there is no logical reason for those different tools. They have helped me, and I've seen in my work that they have helped other people too. And I think I'm going to add to my toolbox,
Of course you are.
Keep adding.
I mean,
yeah,
that's
definitely.
beautiful. That's really beautiful. I just want to, that kind of reminds me of, for me, I always felt like I was a leader. Like they didn't ask me to lead anything. I just led. It's never occurred to me as a choice. But what I've grown into is knowing that I lead through example by taking actual responsibility. So I take responsibility for everything I say and do. I take responsibility for all my actions. If it offends somebody, or if I made a mistake, I will apologize and take responsibility for that. And I fearlessly communicate those things. So I think I've always been doing that even since I was little. Like it didn't occur oh, let's choose today if you're going to lead or not. Like it always was just like I was leading and everybody else seemed to be following. But there were some people who were also co-leading, and now I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are co-leading with me. I don't feel like I don't feel like I have a lot of people who are followers per se. And I find that people are taking more and more responsibility for their choices and their actions. And I guess that must be what I designed. That's where I want to be, with people who are doing that. I definitely don't want to be with people who blame, people who make themselves bigger by making other people smaller, and those kinds of things. And when I see it, I call it out too.
Yeah.
But my choice is to be with people like us, you and Micheal and myself, and people who are on here with us, our chat, are people who come on to Extraordinary Lovers, people who want to take responsibility completely through any system that they're into for who they are and what their actions are causing in this world.
Yeah.
You know, we even have a small experience, you and I, where there was a misunderstanding
Yeah.
and where we came together and we resolved that. And it wasn't one of us that like stepped out and didn't want to communicate. We were like there, you know, we found the time in this busy schedule and we're like, yes, I'm going to hear you. And I feel like it's really nice. I mean, that's a little bit for me coming from another culture. Sometimes I feel like everything is so amazing and everybody's so, you know, that's like the way that it's spoken in America. And then I feel sometimes, you know, when it gets hard, it's not that amazing anymore and things fall apart. And really what that experience with you, Laurie, like showed me is that for you it's not just amazing on the surface. When there's something, you're ready to communicate and we're ready to take responsibility for our part and we are ready to move on from it, because it's not just okay, that was you, it got destroyed and now we don't speak again. No, it actually made us more seeing that we have, like, there is a win-win and we have a similar way of seeing reality and dealing with whatever comes up.
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's true. I mean, I would never hold back from you. And I would never, I mean, to me, it was respectful to say, hey, I have this question. What happened here? And then you went, okay. And you spoke your feelings. And then I heard them and I could also apologize. And then we can move forward together. That's the way I want it. I mean, I know so many situations where it isn't like that. I know so many people who can't face those things and come out intact, and not make it mean too much. So, you know, I love that. I love that about you and I love that about me. I also love that about you. You're awesome when it comes to that. You speak your truth. Sometimes you get really upset and then but you speak it. And to me, that's the only way, really. Then we're being transparent and moving on. And I feel like it is a choice, moment by moment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And you know, that is self-leadership. You are actually leading, like that's how you build the self, the healthy self, because you see yourself show up in different situations without collapsing into emotion or collapsing into destruction, you know, and then you build the self, you build a healthy sense of being able to take responsibility and going out in the world, penetrating the world, knowing that you're going to be able to face what comes on your way. So it's a beautiful also way of not only in relationship, but also in relation to yourself, that see when you're able to move through something and come out on the other side.
Yeah, so good. I don't like making up stories. I don't like being lost. My mind, and I assert most people's minds, are very creative and can make up story after story and make up why they were right and why someone else was wrong and why this and why that. And like, that is not a preferred place for me. I don't like living in that place. I like living in the story of together. Like, somehow we're still marching forward together. That's what I like. So,
So good.
yeah, I think my mind, you know, but I know everyone's mind too. The fantasy of being right and then making everything else wrong, I feel like that's a scary place. I like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I was very aware of that, and I'm thrilled that we're still moving forward together. Michael's
amazing.
doing something right now on the screen.
I do not know what happened here.
I have no idea.
I'm Yeah.
I know you're here, Bella, but I can't see you anymore. And the eye that can see can see.
People are telling me I'm secret. I have so much Scorpio energy. Can you hear me on the screen too? So maybe it's my Scorpio having fun.
I don't know. Something's happening.
I know we have some questions on the screen?
Let's see here.
I think we did, but Michael can't seem to get back there.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure this out. Give me just a second here. Let me bring this up and let's see if we can make this look right.
I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I like
All of a sudden the technology shifted.
the computer did something, and yikes.
All right, well, let's talk about this. You said before you came on, Bella, that you pulled an animal totem card and it was the octopus, and it had something to do with relationships. So I'd like to hear that while Michael's futzing around with the toy.
Yeah, it looked a little scary with all its arms, and then it was like kind of a black, deep sea background, and it says octopus, reaching, yearning, lacking boundaries and direction. And the description is the octopus signifies a wonderfully perceptive mind paired with a lack of healthy boundaries. Unfortunately, this results in a well-intended but messy relationship. The octopus entwines itself into other people's business and share their own without restraint. They believe that's what it means to be close. If you notice after spending time with somebody that you feel drained or uneasy, the essence of octopus is at play. Begin to establish healthy boundaries, be patient and firm. It may be a very old habit to change.
Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Well, that reminded me, I mean, which is different, of this movie that I saw a post when COVID first started, where somebody asked, "What movies are you watching during COVID? What should I watch?" There she is.
Yeah,
What should I watch? I don't know. Michael's still moving around, but I saw your face for a minute. And almost everyone wrote this movie, My Teacher, the Octopus, or My Octopus Teacher. And if you haven't seen that, and if the people that are listening to us have not seen that, it's on Netflix, and I think it's called My Octopus Teacher. And it's an amazing story of a diver who studies an octopus for a year. And they fall in love with each other. Like the octopus falls in love with him and goes to his chest, goes right by his heart and clings to it, and he starts falling in love with her. And it's real. It's definitely a real story. It happened in South Africa, and this diver is madly in love with this octopus, a real octopus, for a year's period of time. So I recommend that you see that, because she could do anything, just things you're talking about. Like she could disguise herself. She could hold shells and trees and twigs and everything in her different arms. And like if a shark was coming by, she could bury herself in the sand. It was really, and he captured all of this. It was really an amazing story. So that's what I thought I was going to say more about. But I think I just did a piece today on my podcast on boundaries. Like, we need boundaries, and other people need boundaries. It allows us to get intimate when we know where we start and stop, and where the other person starts and stop. And we can't do that if people don't exhibit boundaries.
Right.
So if that's what the octopus signifies, I can get that.
Yeah, and I kind of heard messy closeness, and I think that that's often where the seeking into maybe tantra or conscious relating starts. You feel like it's messy, and you feel like there is maybe you don't say the word codependence, but you feel like this unease, and it's messy. And so actually it feels like the octopus is coming and waving with its 8 arms and say, if that's what you're feeling, if it's messy, if it's uneasy, if it's draining, there is something, there you have arms to reach out for something. There is a possibility to come more into center, more into harmony, and to care about yourself and your relationships. It's not supposed to be a continuous battle of moving forward and moving backward. There is another way to live. So for me, it's almost like a little bit of a red flag or a thermometer. Like, take the temperature on your life and your relationships and see if there is a door that you're ready to open. That's what I felt the octopus is telling us.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, we're at time.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Bella. We really appreciate you coming by. How do we get in touch with you? How do people reach out to you and find you?
Yeah, so my name is Bella Krystal on most platforms. So just type that in and then you'll find me. And probably you just see my website. My website is unlockyourdesign.com. But just connect with me on social media and then you're going to find me.
Let me just say that Krystal you spell with a K.
Yes, exactly. With a K.
With a K, yeah.
Yeah, Bella Krystal with a K.
Oh, wow.
Very, very good.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh.
And we just appreciate you. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We love you. We appreciate your being here with us again. And if you're watching this on YouTube, this is a replay that we put up on YouTube every day. Thank you so much for that.
We have announcements.
Make sure that you smash the subscribe button and and make sure you hit the bell so that you can get a notification anytime we post new videos here.
Right.
What is one of
We have two announcements. We have a new Extraordinary Lovers experience happening on April 24th and 25th. And we also have, I'm starting up a course called Sex and Happiness Over 60. It only gets better. And this is going to be my first course, just checking on the distinctions in the book, my new 7 laws of sex and happiness in the second book. And it'll be, so it's an early bird pricing. It's an early pricing and it's very low pricing because I'm using this first group to test my distinctions.
Well, and we want you to be there. So
you have to be over 50 to be in this course.
Yeah, and definitely go to is it LaurieHandlers.com?
LaurieHandlers.com
/ sex
SH60.
SH60.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you. Kisses. I'll be able to see you next time with both eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until then, we'll see you next time.
Love you, Bella.
Love you, Bella.
Love you, Chrissy.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Hello, and thank you for watching. If you like what you see, join us on our live stream for lovers every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/extraordinaryloverstv. And for clips like this or replays of all of our past shows, you can visit our YouTube channel, Extraordinary Lovers TV. Mash the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when we upload new videos. And finally, we'd love to have you join our community of extraordinary lovers on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Come explore the many aspects of love with us. You'll find links in the description below. Until next time, be extraordinary.